Greetings summoners and welcome to another ProGuides video. My name is Irene and today we're going to be discussing 6 overpowered picks for high elo. Now these picks may not be the greatest in the average level of play, but when utilized by advanced players, and we know there's some of you out there, they're incredibly versatile and they can hard carry games. But before anything else, it's time for question of the day. Which champion do you think would make the best friend for you? Now personally, I think Gragas would be a great friend for me. He always brings the party with him, and he wouldn't judge me for letting myself go during COVID. But let me know your answers in the comments below. Let's get into the video. To start off the list, we have CAMILLE, the Steel Shadow. CAMILLE is one of the hardest but most rewarding champions to play on the Wild Rift. Thanks to her incredibly mobile and high damage kit, she has fantastic chase potential. Her hookshot allows her to bounce off of terrain, maneuvering her across a large amount of obstacles. This is one of the most difficult parts about playing CAMILLE, as utilizing the terrain effectively and navigating positioning accurately are tests of intense mechanical skill. Hookshot requires incredibly fast and accurate play. Wait too long to input the direction of the dash, and the momentum will simply drop. The auto-targeting system won't always help you either. For such an important skill for her kit, you want to be in full control of where you're going, rather than relying on the targeting system. Jumping to the wrong enemy champion can throw you wildly out of position, spelling out loss for you and your team. But utilize it correctly, and you can escape any sticky situation or chase down any enemy. CAMILLE's stronger asset lies heavily in her target isolation potential. Most champions can't compete in engage speed with CAMILLE, and no skill is more effective at singling out a target than CAMILLE's ultimate, Hextech Ultimatum. The skill physically prohibits a single target's movement while pushing out all other enemies. This crowd control skill is very unique, creating energy walls denying all escapes. Locking down key members of the enemy team can result in a very favorable fight. With such high mobility and crowd control built into her kit, CAMILLE is very overpowered when played by players who know how to optimize her kit. Our next champion on our list is Twisted Fate. He's been seeing quite a lot of play in higher elos, largely thanks to his global map pressure. As of now, he is the only champion in the game with a skill, his ultimate, that allows him to teleport across the map. Twisted Fate's ultimate, Destiny, reveals all enemy champions, and the second cast teleports him to the target location. For those who know how to play with vision, the knowledge granted by the first cast is invaluable. But for amateur players, the first cast may practically be useless. Upon quickly assessing the map with the first press of your ultimate, advanced players can analyze and quickly calculate an advantageous position. This allows Twisted Fate to outroam literally every champion at level 5. And for advanced players, it allows him to counter the enemy's map positioning. Because of his unconventional damage kit, he can be a little unwieldy in the hands of an amateur. Unlike many other champions that have been seeing success, Twisted Fate's skills on their own aren't really busted. They don't have broken hitboxes, he doesn't have a bunch of dashes and gap closers, and his wave clear isn't even that great. His biggest damage ability is a slow traveling skill shot, which, if you don't prepare for, is more than likely going to miss. So these sound like the abilities of a terrible champion. So what makes him broken in high elo? What Twisted Fate does have is insane versatility built into his 3 cards. If he chooses the yellow card, he has a point-and-click stun, meaning it's impossible to miss, assuming you didn't just misclick. Though not broken in the most typical sense, this allows him to stand as the foundation of his team's composition. He can literally choose to stun whomever he wants, which means he can very much dictate the focus of a team fight. Pick a card is on a 6-second cooldown, so it's very short, meaning he can stun many times through the course of a skirmish. In addition, after stunning the target, his skill shot is all but guaranteed to land. He can choose the red card if he wants area of effect damage instead. This card slows nearby enemies and deals more damage than the yellow card, making it perfect to use if his team is already keeping a strong lockdown on the enemy. Blue card grants him extra damage, straight and simple. This card is great for pushing objectives and executing his enemies. Understanding when and how to use each card can be difficult, but the versatility in a single skill is unmatched. Keep in mind that Twisted Fate has no escapes and no gap closers. He walks pretty slowly and lacks movement speed buffs and is really fragile. A strong understanding of positioning is key to success on him, similar to immobile ADCs. Twisted Fate also relies on auto-attacking a lot more than most AP casters do, opening him up for some very unique build opportunities. Be sure to study up on TF before locking him in. Next champion is Evelynn. Her early game is rather weak, lacking much duel potential. Evelynn loses most 1v1 fights early on against other junglers. Scaling without risking death early is paramount. At level 5, Evelynn gains camouflage, which allows her to be invisible at most times. She loses invisibility when enemy champions close in on her, but this very strong advantage is heavily abusable, especially for high elo players that have a firm understanding of the map. Junglers rely heavily on ganking and pressuring lanes, but without the knowledge to utilize this advantage, the pick can be potentially useless. If Evelynn falls behind, her burst damage goes down, and therefore, the pick priority is not as great. Strong players need to know how to stay ahead, or at least even, in order to abuse the broken mechanics that Evelynn has to offer. Additionally, Evelynn's playstyle is rather unique. Her second ability, her charm, requires strong positioning alongside patience to maximize its usage. Go in too early and ruin your crowd control. Engage at a bad angle, and you potentially put yourself at risk. If played properly, unsuspecting enemies are in for a bad time. Evelynn has the potential to 100-0 enemy champions without even giving them the chance to move or even react. Once you do this once or twice in the game, the Evelynn pick carries map pressure everywhere, regardless of where she actually is. Because she's invisible at all times, the enemy needs to respect her pressure. For players who know how to time and position their engages properly, Evelynn is, without a doubt, the most overpowered jungler in the game. Next we have Katarina, the Sinister Blade. Her kit offers an oppressively large amount of damage, but she's very vulnerable to crowd control lockdown. She's very easy to kill if players are not careful, making her just an okay pick for less skilled players. She is brand new on Wild Rift, so people are still learning how to play the champion, so she may not seem that great right now. But from what we are starting to see in higher elos of play, and what we have seen for years in League of Legends for the PC, she is overpowered and difficult to play against when in the right hands. Her third ability, Shunpo, can be used in succession if we pick up her daggers. This means she can dash around like an absolute mad lad. This makes setting up plays beforehand an absolute necessity. Rely purely on luck, and Katarina players will find themselves in the middle of the enemy team with no escapes. Great Katarina players should be super slippery, jumping everywhere to confuse the enemy. Her ultimate, Death Lotus, deals massive DPS and grievous wounds, arguably one of the highest damaging abilities in the game. Death Lotus yields great results, but is also easily interrupted. Her passive, Veracity, offers cooldown resets upon takedowns. This makes Katarina very similar to Master Yi, where she has amazing snowball potential, but she is, without a doubt, much more mechanically intensive. One kill can lead to another, which can lead to another, and yet another, all in the blink of an eye. If players can think 3 steps ahead on Katarina, she is absurdly strong. But for those who lack the mechanical and strategic prowess, be ready to feed. JANNA performs excellently in high elos. Her individual abilities are rather easy to hit. Point and click to hit Zephyr, and throw out a Howling Gale to provide CC. Eye of the Storm is literally impossible to miss. You can use it on yourself or an ally. It won't ever hit dead air. Unfortunately, she doesn't deal lots of damage, and she is super squishy, making her a terrible frontliner. For less skilled players who don't truly know how to play support, the JANNA pick lacks damage and brute force. But what makes JANNA overpowered in high elo is her ability to deny the enemy and therefore help the team. If you can predict when and how the enemy is going to play, JANNA has a tool in her kit to counter every single play. Playing JANNA isn't about being a mechanical god like many of the other champions on this list, but rather focuses on knowing how to analyze and strategically read the map. The knockups and knockbacks in JANNA's kit can deny most engages in the game, making her an invaluable asset in teamfights. Her passive grants nearby allies movement speed when running towards her, which if positioned correctly, can speed up every teammate. To pull off these feats, JANNA needs to be near her team. Mastering JANNA is incredibly nuanced by positioning and timing. Go in too early, and you'll get picked off instead. Stand too far back, and your skills won't be in effective range for your allies. Understanding where you need to be and how you need to play to provide emergency support for your allies is a required skill to play JANNA. Without these know-hows, the JANNA pick can definitely be less than optimal. Our final overpowered high elo pick is Lee Sin. He's been sitting at a great spot on our tier list for a while, but this is really only for players who know how to optimize his skill usage. The Blind Monk is a champion with one of the highest skill caps in the game. relying on mechanical prowess to carry out games. He is the strongest jungler in the early stages of the game, capable of winning 1v1s against practically every champion at level 3. His playstyle rewards aggressive plays and carrying a lead. But if you fall behind, Lee Sin's skills become lackluster. He isn't very tanky, and his CC isn't the most reliable. Lee Sin's greatest asset is his incredible mobility, which allows him to prepare himself for his ultimate ability, Dragon's Rage. Players need to think of the potential advantages from every dash, while adapting their play to the ever-changing game environment. Thinking about enemy threats, crowd control cooldowns, and ally follow-up potential are all important when following up with Resonating Strike. Thanks to the second proc of all of his abilities, Lee Sin has a near-endless number of combos he can perform, each of which have their own purpose. Some are easier to perform, and others take literal years to master before they can be used consistently in competitive environments. Take the classic Insect, for example, where Lee Sin engages with his first ability, repositions behind the enemy with Safeguard, and kicks the enemy towards the allied team. This not only requires impeccable timing, but also requires players to adapt to the enemy's movements that they're dashing towards. The combo doesn't play out the same every time, as the variables in-game heavily impact his pathing. Without adjusting to others' positioning, Dragon's Rage will most likely kick the champion into a useless spot. And to make matters more complex, the Insect combo is not always linear. There are so many different positions to safeguard towards rather than simply behind, all of which have unique advantages and require split-second decision-making. In addition, because of Lee Sin's passive, Flurry, his auto attacks between abilities are super fast. Players that want to maximize damage should always try to auto-attack in the middle of a combo, even during an Insect. Because of such nuances, Lee Sin has seen professional play in every season of League of Legends on the PC. He is, without a doubt, one of the most mechanically demanding and most rewarding champions to play in Wild Rift. In the list presented, some champions may be mechanically demanding, but don't let that stop you from trying to learn them. Everyone starts somewhere. And of course, there are other fantastic high elo picks that weren't included in this video, but we'll save those for future content. So if you don't want to miss out on them, you know what to do. Make sure to like and sub to the channel. That's it for today, so good luck in your games, and I will see you next time.